It's The World This Week, 7 days, 4 Paris-based correspondents, 1 hour. The World This Week in partnership with the Daily Beast. Foreign editor Christopher Dickey is with us. How are you?
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Glad to have as well Emre Demir, former editor-in-chief of Zaman France. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
With us as well, Venezuelan freelance reporter and photojournalist Sarai Suarez. And the man who cracks the whip at France24.com, Sylvain Attal. The World This Week on Facebook and on Twitter, the hashtag World This Week. The suspense is complete. The mood described as somber ahead of Sunday's referendum to reshape Turkey's constitution and grant President Recep Tayyip Erdogan enhanced executive powers. The campaign taking place under a state of emergency that's been in effect since last July's failed coup. And despite one-sided coverage, well, the outcome is still described as uncertain. Emre Demir, there are tens of thousands in jail right now. In the southeast of the country, there's a fight against the insurgency of the PKK. Yet this poll is considered uncertain. Is it in the bag, though?
Well, it is true. Actually, you know, the recent polls shows us that a slight win for the yes, but it's not. We're not 100% sure. You know, there's a margin of error around 1 to 2%, and the reason because that we are uncertain that a lot of people refuse to respond to the pollsters because they fear for their jobs, etc. So it will. I personally think that the yes will have a narrow win, but anything can happen. And it's not because the no campaign was powerful. It's not that the political opponents, for example, except from the CHP, the Kemalist, the secular party, the other opposition parties didn't even organize a campaign because the Kurdish party, they're basically in prison. Their leader, their MPs, their mayors, all of them are in prison. So the only political party who organized a no campaign was the secular party, and it's not enough. It's not the campaign who will determine the result of this referendum. It will be much more, you know, there is an economic depression in Turkey, and it will probably be the decisive factor for this referendum.
How people feel like their economic fortunes may fare under enhanced powers for President Erdogan. Will it change much, really, if Erdogan wins that referendum?
Well, I will say that it's really hard to see the shiny silver lining in this referendum. You know, to me it's a lose-lose situation for the Turks because, you know, even a slight win for the yes will be contested by the opponents, by the opposition parties. A slight win for no will make Erdogan even more aggressive. So he will remain in power even if the no wins. So it will, the political instability, the shrinking economy will go on. We after this referendum, we will have the same problems in Turkey.
Sylvain Attal, in an interview on Thursday, Erdogan telling Turkish television, April 16th will be an answer to the European Union. Your thoughts on that?
I think that it's obvious that whatever the result of the referendum, the path of Turkey is going far, far away from the European Union. It's a fact. I mean, you know, from both parts. I mean, Erdogan doesn't want to be part of the European Union. The European Union doesn't want. No one wants Turkey to be a part of the European Union. So it's a no subject for me. It's problem solved.
At a rally on April the 2nd, Erdogan referred to an EU summit that took place recently in Rome, where the leaders all went to see the Pope, and he said the EU is a, quote, crusader alliance on the campaign trail.
Well, he's playing the old Islamist card there, isn't he? I mean, that's the game, is to say, they don't like us because we're Muslims, but we're going to fight back, and we're great, and Turkey's wonderful, and that's all going to be terrific. But, you know, it's very hard to separate the rhetoric from the man in this, and also to separate the referendum from the man. This man is transparently one of those rulers who's decided that the country can't do without him. He has this, he's embraced the myth of his own indispensability, which is what this referendum is about. It's like, give me more power, create a situation where I can stay
the most powerful man in the country forever and arrange things to keep myself in office forever. That's exactly what he's doing. And Europe compromised those possibilities because of its insistence on democratic process, its insistence on a lot of things that are inconvenient for Erdogan. So while Sylvain is exactly right, no, people long ago gave up on the idea of really embracing Turkey and bringing it into the European Union. At least that was a moderating element in Turkish politics. Now he wants to get rid of that completely and go back, become a sultan once again.
And sorry, it may have consequences for Europe. After all, there is that deal with the EU to take back refugees and migrants. This referendum in Turkey, what's your feeling on how it's seen from here?
I feel that playing the card of the religion has nothing to do here. It's like you were saying, this is not a non-subject. But also, if he wins, this is going to be so dangerous for his own people. I mean, we were talking before the program how much this looks like the Venezuelan situation with Chavez and the referendum and the way he's been dealing the campaign and all these gigantographies, the pictures of himself all around the place, bringing people to the rallies and everything. So the way he's dealing with this is just, I need more power because you people don't know how to deal with democracy, so give me all that and I will take care of you. So it's this attitude of these politicians in power who believe they have to parent the population, and the people don't know to decide on, can't decide on anything, so they need to do it for them. And this is gonna be a big danger for democracy, I believe, because it's giving all the cards to one man who will decide on everything. And the opposition has been hit so much, and I believe this is a way to come back after the coup d'etat he got, and is a revenge.
All right, Emre Demir talking about how in the current climate, many reluctant to give their own opinion. But political divisions in Turkey can sometimes be read, if you believe this Istanbul barber interviewed by the Associated Press, on people's faces.
The leftists have moustaches that go down and cover the mouth and lips. The right-wing nationalists' moustaches reach down even further and are narrower. The moustaches of the Islamic conservatives are trimmed short like mine and aren't supposed to cover the mouth.
I won't ask you why you're not...
Everyone wears a moustache. Everyone wears a moustache.
I was just going to say, I'm not asking you, Emre Demir, why you're not wearing a
real
mustache.
Turk, you know.
It's because you're living in France.
But it's totally true, you know, the mustache, they are the political identities. We can identify someone if he's a nationalist, if he's a leftist, by simply looking to his mustache.
I wonder if you consider a real man in Turkey if you don't wear a mustache.
Yeah, not really.
How are women?
Some of them have mustaches too.
But actually, these fault lines that have always existed in Turkish politics, they're being a bit upended. Like we've seen a split within the nationalists. We've seen even a split within some of the AKP over this vote.
Of course, there is a minority within the AKP who will vote for no. And also, we have to remind that Abdullah Gül, the ex-president, or Ahmet Davutoğlu, the ex-prime minister, they will probably vote for no. They are not very happy with this situation. So there is a dissident camp within the AKP. But
did Davutoğlu say anything?
No,
about
he can't say openly because he will get arrested if he says so. But
That's a democracy.
He never said yes. So, but nationalists will decide on this referendum. So they'll
be the swing vote.
Yeah.
Okay. Last week, it was Tomahawk missiles hitting a Syrian airfield allegedly used to carry out nerve gas attacks on civilians. This Thursday, the Pentagon saying for the first time it had, in combat, used a massive ordnance airburst bomb, Moab, the most powerful non-nuclear bomb in the world, to strike in Afghanistan's southern Nangarhar province to take out tunnels used by Islamic State militants.
We have the greatest military in the world, and they've done a job as usual. So we have given them total authorization, and that's what they're doing. And frankly, that's why they've been so successful lately.
Christopher Dickey, our correspondent in Washington, telling us that, well, after the airstrikes last week, after the airstrike in Afghanistan, public opinion generally, when there's something like this, rally around the president. Are you rallying around the president on something like this, though?
Well, you know, first of all, I think it needs to be said, our correspondent who covers Afghanistan tells us that, in fact, it was very effective, that a lot of al-Qaeda leadership, a lot of the jihadists were wiped out in this bombing.
Because our correspondent in Kabul talked about the worry that Afghans felt after this.
Well, that may be true, but what I'm told is that a lot of these people were wiped out, although there were supposedly some civilian prisoners in there. They may have been killed. But apparently, the people were just blown to smithereens. I mean, how they counted how many people were killed is a little bit problematic because there wasn't a lot left of them. But I can't get over the feeling between the Tomahawk missiles and the Moab bomb that this is boys with toys, that this is a bunch of guys thinking, boy, now we're really going to use these weapons. We've been sitting on them and we couldn't use them, and now we're just going to have this kind of ejaculatory bombing campaign. But what's it going to accomplish? In this case, it killed a bunch of people. In the Tomahawk missiles case, it isn't clear exactly what it will accomplish over the long run.
All right, news of the very big bomb overshadowing a story that broke in The Guardian that describes how British intelligence linked Trump's campaign manager Paul Manafort to the Russians. Los Angeles Times cartoonist Ed Hall, this is how he sees the Moab bomb, as it were. Sorry, Suarez, your reaction to that cartoon?
Well, the distractions are basically one big strategy that this kind of people like Trump used to do. I mean, the fight with Russia and trying to put gases, a distraction, une fumée that distract people from the smoke story to distract people. But the consequences, the problem is not that. The problem is the real consequences on the field and on the people and on the collateral damage that used to come from this kind of bombing. That's what, for me, is really something that is very questionable. Because the transparency, I don't really believe too much in the transparency, the way they're communicating on this subject.
Well, part of the problem is that there's just nobody, there's so few people there on the ground to really see what's going on. I mean, I have been in countries many times that were bombed by the United States, and you listen to the reports out of Washington, it always worked out fantastically well. It's going to be very effective, and all these people were killed, and we've really taught these bad guys a lesson, and it was almost never the case. And very frequently, it backfired very badly on the United States because the leaders that were being bombed, they survived and they waited and they served up revenge as a cold dish, as the saying goes. Months, even years later, carried out terrorist attacks that killed a lot of people.
Been a bit of a crazy week, huh? Because a lot of U-turns from Donald Trump saying NATO was no longer obsolete. After the visit of the Chinese president, they spoke on the telephone, and he seems to be he eased off critical remarks on him, although he's still pressuring the Chinese when it comes to the other hotspot, which is really starting to worry people more and more, which is North Korea.
Two things. The first thing is that people may ask themselves in the US, have we elected the second George W. Bush eventually? Because he campaigned on non-interventionist positions, and now it's the second bombing in 1 week. So you can ask yourself, what's the guy really believe in? And that's the first thing. The second thing, have you seen this amazing video segment in Fox News where it was, with the story of the chocolate cake, etc. When
he described the chocolate cake and he mistook Syria and Iraq.
And really, Chris has taken the words out of my mouth. It's really the feeling that you have, whatever the result of the bombing, etc., and the ethical question and the moral question: should we have strikes? Should Syria be punished for what they have done over there? The feeling that you have is, the guy looks crazy. I mean, how can you have this kind of storytelling about something so dramatic. It's crazy. It's really crazy.
What strikes me most that is the reaction, the positive reaction from the Middle Eastern leaders. You know, Egypt, Turkey, Saudi Arabia. They're really happy. You know, they with this U-turn.
People are happy.
Yeah, but look at who we're talking
now
about.
he's tough with Iran, with Russia, with Syria. But I think that what we saw in 1 week, we can say that the unpredictability will be the cornerstone of Trump's foreign policy. So, to the Arab autocrats, I will say, you know, be
curb your
patient.
enthusiasm.
Yeah.
On that point, some people who defend Trump are likening it to Nixon's madman theory, that you keep people off guard by acting a little bit crazy while at the same time having a plan.
Yeah, I talked to Bob Gates, who's one of the great wise men of Washington, D.C., about precisely this.
Former CIA director and defense secretary.
And defense secretary for both George W. Bush and Obama. I talked to him about this about a little over a year ago, back in January of last year. He made some interesting points about it. He said, you know, part of the problem that Obama had is that he acted as if this was a completely rational world, and that everybody would understand what their best interests were, and that you could always work on those principles, when in fact, when you're dealing with Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi or even Xi Jinping, and to a large extent with Vladimir Putin, their sense of the rational world is not the same as Obama's was. And they respond to force and to pressure. So he was saying Trump may sound crazy. He didn't like Trump, but you could see the virtue of a madman policy. Okay, Nixon had a madman policy during Vietnam. What did that get him? The whole point was to convince North Vietnam there was nothing he wouldn't do. It brought North Vietnam to the table, and they still won the war. So,
and the other question is what's the real objective? If you take, for example, the Tomahawk strike in Syria, they say that they have won Russia, and the Russians have probably won the Syrian before, so they drew out some of their planes, and you don't know really how many planes they have destroyed in this strike. So the only thing is that if you want to really be a strong leader, for example, your objective should be, for example, to nail down all the Assad planes, for example, in order to prevent another attack, another chemical attack, for example, or other kind of bombings. There's not only chemical attacks, because they can be very deadly actions that are not chemical. We shouldn't focus that much on chemicals, because he has killed many people without using chemical weapons daily.
When we come back, we're going to look at another volatile situation right here in France with a presidential election coming up. You're watching The World This Week.